Coastal Crochet, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to do large shell stitch, which is to accompany week 9 of my crochet along, which I'm hosting on Instagram and on my blog. The links are in the description below. So in weeks 9 we're going to be doing this large shell stitch, and as you can see it uses stitches in a way that produces these shells. They can be used, so each row you can have a new colour, like on this sample. You could do alternate colours, or if you wanted to you can do large shell stitch all in one colour, and it produces quite a nice textured fabric with the shells. And on my Seaside stash busting blanket, which I'm using for the crochet along, here it is. And this is my large shell stitch at the beginning of week 9, and as you can see it just produces a really nice effect. On the right side of the work the shells really do look shell-like. On the way back the front of the work looks slightly less prominent with the stitches, so just think about that in your colour choices. So I'll show you how to do it. Okay, so to start our row of large shell stitch we make 4 chain, 1, 2, 3, 4 at the end of the last row. We turn our work ready to start this next row. Large shell stitch is made up of double treble stitches and double crochet stitches, and remember I use UK crochet terminology, so a double treble is a US treble stitch and a double crochet is a US single crochet stitch. So we're going to start by doing 3 double treble into the same stitch as the turning chain, so that's this stitch right at the base of that turning chain. And a double treble is where we wrap the yarn over the hook twice, we insert the hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull through to the front, and then pull through two loops, 2 more loops and 2 loops, and that's our first double treble stitch. Remember the 4 chain at the start of the row, that counts as our first double treble stitch. We've got 2 more double trebles to make into this same stitch. So pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, and we have 1 more double treble to make in that same stitch. Pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. And we start large shell stitch with half a shell, so this is going to be half of our very first shell. Now to carry on, what we do is we miss the next 3 stitches, so 1, 2, 3, we miss those, and then we do a double crochet, US single crochet, into the next stitch here, and this is to anchor down that shell. So as you can see now it's quite clear that we have our first half shell. Now we're going to carry on and make our first full shell. So we miss 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and then we do 7 double treble stitches into that next stitch there after we've missed those 3. So miss 3 stitches and do 7 double treble into that stitch. That's 1. That's 2. Three. 4. 5. 6, 1 more, all into that same stitch. So that is 7 double trebles. If we count them, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 double treble stitches all into that same stitch. And we now need to anchor that shell down. So we miss 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and we do a double crochet, a US single crochet into that next stitch. And as you can see now, we have our first full shell. And so I'll carry on now with the next shell. So it's miss 3 stitches and then 7 double treble into that next stitch along. So I've done 6, one more, and that should be 7 double treble. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we've done 7 double treble into that stitch. We now miss 3 stitches, so 1, 2, 3, and we do a double crochet, US single crochet into that stitch. And as you can see now, we have 2 full shells and our first half shell here. So for the purposes of this sample, I'm going to do our final shell, and as before, you miss 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and then we do 7 double crochet into this stitch here. A large shell stitch is normally made up of a multiple of 8 stitches plus 5, which allows for the half shell at the start of a row and also for the double crochet to anchor it. But for my Seaside stash busting blanket, we're actually working with 180 stitches. So for large shell stitch, it doesn't sit exactly right within that stitch multiple. So what I've done is I've allowed for that, and I'll show you how we've allowed for that on this sample, which actually, although it isn't 180 stitches, this end of the row here does represent what we've got in our Seaside stash busting blanket. So I think I've got one more here to make, one more double treble, all into that same stitch. And let's have a look. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so on our Seaside stash busting blanket, what we have now is we have 3 stitches left. Ideally, in large shell stitch, you'd have 4 stitches left. You'd have 1, 2, 3 to miss, and then you would do your double crochet stitch into that final stitch to anchor the final shell. But because we're working with 180 stitches, we should now only have 3 stitches left. So we're missing 2, so miss 1, 2, and then we're doing our final double crochet into the top of the 3 chain from the row below. That 3 chain counts as the first stitch. So we pop our hook into the top of that 3 chain and we make 1 double crochet to anchor this final shell down. I've split the yarn a little bit, but I'll carry on. So as we can see now, we have 3 full shells and 1 half shell at the start of the row. Actually, what I should have done there, I'll go back to do that, is just change colour, because I'm going to do different coloured rows, new colour on each row for these shells. So we join with our new colour at the end of that final stitch. So what we do now is we make 4 chain, because that's going to be our first double treble of this next row. Make 4 chain, turn the work. Now because this is only for the purposes of my Seaside stash busting blanket, because we were working with 1 stitch less, I'm only going to do 2 double treble into this first stitch. So we're doing it into the stitch at the base of the turning chain. Normally in large shell stitch you do 4, but obviously for the purposes of the blanket I've allowed for that 1 stitch 2 less we've got, and it just means that the edges will be straighter, and we're just keeping consistent with that stitch count. So we have our chain 4, which counts as the first double treble of this row, and then we have 2 double treble into that same stitch. And now what we do is we miss 3 stitches just like before, but because obviously we're missing double treble, you're going up in the curve. So 1, 2, 3, miss those stitches, and then you do 1 double crochet US single crochet into that middle stitch of the shell. So miss 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 1 double crochet into that middle stitch. And then what we do now is exactly the same as before. We do 7 double treble into this double crochet from the row before and miss those 3 stitches. So it's miss 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and then we're doing 7 double treble into this double crochet stitch from the row before. So that's 1, that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then our final double treble into that stitch. And we should have 7. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And again, we miss 3 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, and then we anchor with 1 double crochet into that middle stitch in the shell. And there you go. You see, we can now see that the new shell is sitting within the row of the shells before. And then we carry on with 7 double treble into the double crochet from the row before, miss 3 stitches, so 1, 2, 3, and 7 double treble into this stitch here, and we'll carry on. So at our final double treble of this group, okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, miss 3 stitches, so 1, 2, 3, 1 double crochet into that middle stitch, miss 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and then it's 7 double treble into that double crochet stitch from the row before. Again, we're working our final double treble on this last group, and as you can see here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so 7 double treble there. And this is our last shell of the row, and now we miss 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, so that's 1, 2, 3 stitches, and we do our final double crochet into the top of that first 4 chain we made, because that first 4 chain counted as our first stitch of the previous row. And so we do 1 double crochet into the top chain of that 4 chain to anchor this final shell in place. At this point you can join with a new colour, or you can carry on in the same colour, it's up to you, but this is now our 2 rows of large shell stitch, and as you can see, this is when you're working the shells facing, they look really pronounced, and this is more the rear. On the Seaside Stash Busting blanket is the first row, which has the shells a little bit more pronounced, and then the rear of the shells show on the second row, and it produces a really nice fabric. So I hope you've found this tutorial helpful. Thank you.